people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The boxing world is reacting to the World Boxing Council's decision to strip Shakur Stevenson of his WBC title that he was probably going to drop anyway. Veteran boxing scribe Dan Raphael said, "This strikes me as abnormal. Usually a champion has at least a couple of weeks to decide which division to maintain a title in, and Shakur made his WBC lightweight mando in July, so he doesn't have one due anyway. I don't get it. Floyd was allowed to keep the welterweight and junior middleweight WBC titles for ages." Shakur not generating what Floyd Mayweather used to generate might have something to do with that. Ariel Helwani said the World Boxing Council is doing a good job of getting all the fighters to turn on them. Madness. Content creator Najee of Cigar Talk said a lot of boxing folks were mad about Dana White and Zuffa's entry into the game, but when belt organizations do things like this, it's time for a shakeup. Nasty work, what looks a lot like extortion. You're expecting the fighter to kick out an additional $150,000 to you for a belt that he's not even defending because he's at a different weight, fighting for a different belt, but you're still supposed to get paid. You're still supposed to get 150 large. It's extortion. He doesn't owe you a mandatory because he already satisfied his mandatory obligation in his previous fight. You can't hide behind your own bylaws for justification to the practice when you're the one that wrote them.
You didn't force David Benavidez' fight. You didn't, you bend your rules a lot, Mauricio. If we're being honest here, you bend your rules a lot.
You are being judgmental. Why don't you open and listen to the rules and listen to my explanation?
Okay.
Why do you go and accuse and just get to a conclusion? That is not correct.
We can go case by case, but the fact that you never enforced a mandatory on Jermall Charlo for years. That's a fact.
Please let me talk. I think
the World Boxing Council, them in particular, have been overplaying their hand for years, and now the chickens may have come home to roost. Fighters are starting to ask themselves, them and their teams, why are we putting up with this? What's in it for us? Because we can see what's in it for them. At any given moment, they can charge us hundreds of thousands of dollars for what is a trinket, a trophy. What if more fighters now decide not to go along with the program? The World Boxing Council now has that to worry about. Should they be worried?
He should be. Yeah, he should be worried. The Zuffa team have got so much power and money behind it. It's Turkey, it's Dana White, it's Nick Khan, and there's others as well that we don't know. I mean, when you see fighters not care too much about belts, obviously Shakur Stevenson said, I'm not paying any sanctioning fees, fuck the belt, bang. Terence Crawford said the same thing, obviously he's retired. What we're seeing now is a lot of big fights being made without belts. You don't need a belt to have a big fight, so he should be worried. Obviously, look, the WBC is the WBC. I spoke to Dalton Smith the other day, and obviously he's got a new, nice, shiny WBC belt. It means a lot to fighters. But the WBC have still got to look at the way in which they do things. Some of the fights they allow, like Keith Thurman fighting Sebastian Fundora, like Keith Thurman's not had anything, not done anything for years apart from that Brock Jarvis fight. So they've got to look at the way in which they do stuff, but they should be worried. I think everyone should be worried about Zuffa. I think Zuffa are a big problem for everyone. And I don't mean big problem as a negative, I mean big problem as they will take your fighters, they will put on big fights, and they're here to stay, and I think they're here to play as well. Again, Dana White, Turkey, Nick Khan, that's power. That's money, that's power, that's experience. They're a problem.
Zuffa entering into the boxing space at a time where the fighters themselves may be wondering, what's the use in going through the WBC? They just do whatever they want. Charge us money whenever they want. What Zuffa would represent in that situation is the alternative. What did not exist before, what was not there before, is there now. And I think the World Boxing Council should be worried because they've been overplaying their hand for years, overstating their relevance, their significance for years. You are but one of 4 separate sanctioning bodies. There's nothing that actually makes you better than the other 3, more special than the other 3, aside from Mauricio getting more camera time. And that's because he loves the cameras. That's because he wants to. Anyone can understand the intrinsic value of a fighter winning their first alphabet title. I get it. But there's 4 separate ways to do that. Going through the WBC is not the only way. And the moment that a sanctioning body stops performing the most essential function of their role, fighters and their teams will start to ask themselves, well then what the fuck do we need from them? The most important function of a sanctioning body like the World Boxing Council is to give the sport a hierarchy, rank standings, and once those ranks are established and those sanctioning fees are collected, scheduling eliminators to keep those ranks moving along, to keep the world title in circulation, to ensure that every contender that earns it gets their just due. Whereas what the World Boxing Council has been doing is judging who deserves a shot for themselves. Oh, collecting sanctioning fees from everybody. You have a guy like Suleiman Sissoko fight in your eliminators, pay the sanctioning fees, so that Manny Pacquiao off a 3-year hiatus can get a shot before him. Ryan Garcia off a loss can get a shot before him. Madness. To where if you're not going to perform the most essential function of your role, boxing doesn't need you. The World Boxing Council's problem is they must have forgot what their job is. Mauricio, to me, seems like he's confused himself with a promoter. What he tries to act like.
Junior middleweight, junior welterweight, and flyweight. These are all divisions with active champions. Champions that are out there fighting either in recent months or scheduled to fight in recent months. Why should this be described as anything as a way for the WBC to collect a fee for a fake title?
Okay. You opt to say and to go through the money again. And you have a very big problem with money because it is not about money. The WBC has taken a stance to try the best for the industry, for the promoters, and for the fighters.
Was Mauricio's answer as to why are there so many secondary titles floating around. You're doing what's best for the industry, what's best for the promoters, and what's best for the fighters by mass-producing belts. How is that what's best for them? All that's doing is confusing people that don't understand the sport and watering it down for the ones that do, while affording you a chance to charge more fighters, more sanctioning fees. Mauricio says that it's not about the money, and yet it always seems to involve money, you charging more of it. So what is the consequence of the WBC's reputation taking so many hits all at once, publicly? Well, you might start to see fighters, more of them, forego the WBC route for other sanctioning body belts, going other routes. It's one thing that could happen. Another thing that could happen, you might start to see fighters grow more comfortable going the Zuffa route and skipping the belt organizations entirely. Try something else. At least going over there, you won't be charged sanctioning fees by sanctioning bodies. Some are run better than others, but still, you won't have to worry about that. The point being, a lot of fighters and their teams are waking up. The more public spats the World Boxing Council has with fighters, the more fighters are going to ask themselves, what do we actually need from them? Them specifically, when there are 3 other sanctioning bodies, and there is Zuffa. What the fuck's supposed to make the World Boxing Council so special?
He thinks you would give his little brother Jermell Charlo problems.
He said that?
Yeah, Jermall, the bigger brother, said that he feels like your style would give his little brother Jermell Charlo problems.
I mean, yeah, for sure. My style give anybody problems. It's hard to train for me. I do everything. I do it all. I box, I bang. I'm right-handed, I'm left-handed. Thanks, guys. So I can do it all.
Would seem that Jaron Boots Ennis has unwittingly become involved in the sibling rivalry of the twin brothers, Jermell and Jermall. Not something you would expect a big brother to say about their little brother. I believe that Jermall is supposed to be older by a few minutes or a few seconds, something along those lines. We know that the twin brothers, the Charlos, don't get along. Personalities are too similar, and them being similar doesn't necessarily mean they will coalesce. Not if they're both volatile, both emotional, or both selfish, both competitive, they won't gel. The Charlo brothers don't gel with each other, and so Jermall said that Boots would give Jermell a lot of problems.
That's a jab.
It's just a dry way of taking shots at his own brother. But is it true, though? I think it is at this point, for the simple fact that Jermell hasn't fought, what, 2? Going on 3 years? He hasn't fought since he lost to Canelo Alvarez. That's about 2 going on 3 years. He hasn't actually made junior middleweight in about 3 going on 4 years. Though he has been posting training videos to his social media, and he has been hinting at a return to the junior middleweight division for about a year now. Still no ETA on when his next fight is supposed to be. If he were smart, he would leave the island, leave PBC Island, go pair up with Matchroom for a 2 to 3 fight deal so that they can build up a fight between him and Boots. Because if what he's expecting is for Matchroom or anybody else to just kick out millions upon millions of dollars for a fighter who hasn't fought in some years now, and when he did, he lost.
It's not gonna happen.
You're just gonna sit out even longer waiting for that, and it's unnecessary because by now, you could have had 1 or 2 stay busy fights on Pro Box, but I'd wager you think you're too good for that.
Okay.
So what if you go to Eddie and you go to Matchroom and you say, hey, let's ink a 2 to 3 fight deal that caps off with a Boots fight, and you can get the tune-up fights for me. Matchroom can probably pay him better for a tune-up or tune-ups than Pro Box can. And with Matchroom, it would at least be towards something. It'd be towards the Boots fight. I see the value in Boots versus Charlo because, you know, Boots is at 154 now. Charlo used to rule this weight class. He was once undisputed. If you build it up, you can sell it, but to do it, you have to give Matchroom the opportunity to promote it, to promote you.
I think Boots wins the fight.
At this point, I do. If this were the Jermell Charlo of yesteryear, I'd go with Charlo just because of experience and size. He's got more experience at the weight, fought the better quality of competition of the two a few years ago. I would have went with Charlo. Here today, Charlo's in his mid to late 30s, hasn't fought in 2 or 3 years, hasn't made this weight in 3 or 4, trying to. He could lose his punch resistance in the process, boiling all the way back down to 154.
At his age?
I don't even think he really should be targeting Jaron Ennis right now. I think he should be targeting a move to 160. See, if you go to 160 and establish yourself there now, by the time you're done, Jaron Ennis and some of those other junior middles will start to move up, at which point you can catch them then at a more accommodating weight for you. But all of this talking for the sake of talking.
So many years, he's not getting anything done.
Jaron Ennis is said to be in deep negotiations for a Virgil Ortiz showdown set to go down in April. Whoever wins that fight, you could target them, but you need to get a head start on them. You don't go back to your old stomping grounds.
Back to 154.
You go to where they will be over time. You go to 160 because sooner or later, they're going to move up there. By the time they do, you want to have a belt in hand, so they have a reason to even look in your direction. Well, you're doing it. You just look like a panhandler.
Ultimately, this might not materialize into anything. It might be more talk for the sake of talk from the talkative Charlo brothers.
Elsewhere in the junior middleweight division, Xander Zayas and Emiliano Vargas appear at the Super Bowl during Benito's halftime show, albeit very briefly. WBA and WBO junior middleweight champion Xander Zayas and unbeaten up-and-comer Emiliano Vargas made a surprise appearance during the Super Bowl halftime show. The two boxers appeared at the Levi Stadium as they offered a backdrop for rapper and musician Bad Bunny. The duo took part in a stylized shadow boxing sequence, squaring off in the center of the field as the rapper navigated the stage. As Bad Bunny was walking, he walked through an arch that was formed from the two fighters, Zayas and Vargas, used the performance to showcase their culture.
It was a very special moment to see two of our young stars, Xander Zayas and Emiliano Vargas, make appearances during Bad Bunny's performance. The Super Bowl halftime show is one of the biggest stages in the world, and opportunities like this help raise their profiles, not just within boxing, but beyond the sport as well.
Veteran promoter and Hall of Famer Bob Arum said, and he's right. The basic idea here is these two boxers have now been exposed to Bad Bunny's legions of fans so that down the line they might recognize them from that halftime show, see something in them that they like, and in effect, raise their profile, raise their stock. Zayas donned the colors of his home island, Puerto Rico, just over a week after becoming the youngest active unified champion by securing the WBO and WBA junior middleweight titles in San Juan. Vargas, representing Mexico, showed the hand speed that he is known for. Following this appearance, both fighters will focus back on their boxing. Zayas recently called out IBF junior middleweight champion Josh Kelly. There is a lot of UK fighters. There's a lot of fighting in general to do left in my career, but right now we're focusing on Josh Kelly. He's from the UK. He just won his first world title last Saturday. I have 2. Why not go for 3? I feel like it's a very big fight to make it happen, and hopefully we can do it. I feel like in that fight, I'm the A side, so he'll have to come to this side of the pond to fight. I was at the hotel getting ready for my fight and preparing mentally and doing the final touches, and I was watching him go do his job, and he did an amazing job, Zayas said of Josh Kelly. So I remember when Virgil Ortiz and Rick Merrigan jointly tried to pull rank on Xander Zayas by dictating the terms of engagement, the location of the fight, the splits, and I thought to myself then, I don't know that Virgil is in any position to dictate terms to Xander. I don't know that Virgil is the A-side over Xander. That was before Xander became a champion.
Before he won the WBO title, before he added the WBA title to it, and before he appeared in the Super Bowl halftime show. If he wasn't already the A-side to Virgil, he definitely is now.
Listen, any association with a recording artist as well known as Bad Bunny, who's not just well known amongst his own native Puerto Ricans, he's known all across Latin America. This halftime show turned out to be the most watched halftime show in the history of halftime shows. So that if Xander Zayas played some small part in that, a lot of people would have seen him. People that might recognize him later on as his career progresses and decide to become fans of this guy, because there's a lot to like there.
He's got a somewhat fan-friendly style. Xander's no outside cutie pie, no outboxer. He's not boring. Only 23 years old and already a unified champion. At the rate that his career is progressing, he could become the face of the junior middle or middleweight divisions, and he's got charisma. He's well-spoken.
Speaks 2 languages. He's not a Jono Sabo like Virgil. A lot of people are of the opinion the reason Virgil isn't a bigger name is because he's not in tune with his own heritage. Not speaking the language has something to do with that.
Xander doesn't have that problem.
His 2026 is off to a very, very strong start, becoming a unified champion, appearing in a halftime show. He's hit the ground running, and he's leaving older and what are supposed to be more experienced fighters than he is in the dust.